Om Namah Shivaya. Welcome to Awaken Living with Nibodhi. And this week we're talking about Shiva, the sacred masculine. Last week we discussed Shakti, the sacred feminine, and the week before that was on conscious relating and the unified field of Shiva and Shakti, and all the embodiments of that in our own personal lives, in our interactions with our coworkers, with our partner, with our family, our community. So today's podcast, today's discussion is on Shiva, the divine masculine. And again, it doesn't matter what gender your form is or how you identify, whether you identify more with masculine or feminine, they're universal concepts. And every incarnated being ultimately is this balance of masculine and feminine qualities, a perfect balance of Shiva and Shakti when we're in our wholeness. And only when we're in our wholeness do we really embody the divine qualities that both of these offer us. And these qualities, all the qualities of creation, are technically Shakti, because Shiva is the substratum. Shiva is the awareness, the witness to the whole of creation. And with that, there are clearly designated traits assigned to the material creation that are specifically for the masculine and feminine. And again, these aren't gender, they're concepts, they're energies. And that's the beauty of the dance of creation. That's the paradoxical nature of it. And so the discussion today mainly talks about that paradox, the duality, and the dance of the two that eventually leads to the dissolution of the two back into the one. Remember in the Tao, it says, out of nothing came the one, out of one came two, out of two came three, and out of three came all things. And at the pralaya, the final dissolution of this cycle of creation, it merges back into the one. So for those who identify more with the masculine, or everyone who's listening to understand more of the masculine, this is this discussion. And I'm saying this with love. It's time for the masculine to show up and embrace the divine masculine. The world has been dominated by the patriarch and toxic masculinity for a very long time. And as I was saying last week, it's not that Shakti should rule and control everything, even though she kind of already does. That's the energy of Shakti. There needs to be a complete balance and harmony of Shiva and Shakti. It needs to come together in wholeness and completeness. But for that to happen, everyone has to embrace their divinity, their divine masculine and their divine feminine. But the toxic masculine energy has been destroying society for a long time. Embracing the divine masculine, it's not or never just about physical strength or providing financial provision or anything like that. It's always been, it always will be, in all ways, be about offering presence, offering energetic, emotional, spiritual embodiment, presence, and safety for yourself, for your partner, for your family, for your community. And yeah, it may be noble to provide materially, but anyone can do that. Doesn't matter your gender. It's showing up that really matters. Showing up for your partner, your children, your family, the community, the world, with consistency, with dedication, with devotion. And material support may be part of that dharma, but the real dharma is to show up with presence embodied. And it's really important to reflect, if your primary goal in life is to provide financially, where does that desire come from? Where does that belief system come from? You weren't born with that. Is that yours? Like, did you adopt that somehow? Did you see that in a movie star? Was that reflected to you in your father, in your upbringing? How did that come about? Why is that part of your consciousness? Or is your foundation in love? Is it in alignment? Is it in service and devotion to provide? Or is it from the insecurity, the need to prove yourself? These are questions that we have to ask. And I came up with these questions because these are questions I'm asked a lot, or I hear a lot of the time. And so we don't need to prove ourselves. No one needs to prove themselves. You're valuable, you're worthy, and you're lovable and capable of loving because you exist for no other reason. But we need to question ourselves, what is our desire? What is our motivation in any action? And if you've been working on yourself, if you're on the spiritual path, are you offering yourself 108%? Are you offering your presence? Or do you hide behind some mask of unhealed wounds? And if you do, that's not to be something to be shamed about or to feel guilty about. We've all done it. I've done it. I'm still working on it. I'm still healing it. And we need to bring these subconscious programs, these adapted survival tools to the conscious to heal them. Otherwise, they're going to continue to dwell in the subconscious, and we're going to continue to function unconsciously and continue to cause pain and harm to those that we love and that we don't want to cause pain and harm to. I mean, nobody actually, unless you're a demon, wants to cause pain and harm to another human being. And when you are embodied, when you are showing up, it's felt. Because here's the truth. An empowered, embodied, awakened woman feels the difference, just like you feel the difference between an empowered, embodied, awakened woman or someone who's doing it for show and for likes on Instagram and TikTok. You feel the difference in her. She feels the difference in you. And she feels the difference, not just from your bank account. It's your energetic currency that counts. Women are very powerful, and they can read the field. They can read your intentions from an incarnation away. Okay. And if Shakti is embodied, she doesn't care about your material riches, although if you have them, they're useful because it provides a foundation of security. But the richness of your presence and the richness of your heart and you being rooted and established in yourself, in your love and in your power. So a woman of a Shakti's sincere longing for safety is much more than just the financial material means. She needs to feel you holding her in every aspect of her being, in all those Mahavidyas, all the different aspects of Shakti as she dances. You need to be able to hold her. You need to be able to hold yourself in that. Your wallet can't do that. Your bank account can't do that. Your crypto and stocks can't do that. Your embodied presence can. So you may have been taught, I've heard it taught, I've seen it taught. I've been to classes where they taught this in New Age and neo-tantric practices, that embodied presence means sitting and eye gazing for hours on end, breathing up and down your spine with some special breathing sound. And that's fine. Those things are lovely. They're wonderful. I can share with you how to do those if you want. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars over the weekend to do that. It's very simple. But that's not it. That's not the practice. Okay. Again, it doesn't mean not sitting there for hours eye gazing. If you have a few hours to sit and hold your beloved and eye gaze and hold them, that's wonderful. But it means showing up in every other aspect of life. In the morning, when it's time to take the kids to school. In February or March, when it's time to pay the taxes. When it's time to take out the garbage or do the dishes or do the laundry. Every aspect of life. And when it's time to be intimate. So do those practices, but take those practices. The purpose of those practices is to bring embodiment and awareness into every aspect of life, showing up for life itself. And it happens one practice at a time, but we need to show up for everything. Okay. And all the gold, all the silver, all the diamonds, all the crypto in the world can't buy you showing up. You have to decide. It's a choice. It's a moment-to-moment choice to show up. And you need to show up to Shakti in all of her changing emotions. And that's not just Shakti, your partner. That's Shakti nature. Because one moment it's going to be sunny, and the next moment you could be in a tsunami or a hurricane or an earthquake or a flood or a fire or. Shakti is the universe. Every moment is constantly changing. And Shakti is changing in you too. You change your mind 1,000 times a day. Can you stay present? Can you stay in yourself without abandoning your heart, without abandoning yourself in the ever-changing world? If we can't do that, if you're in a partnered relationship with a female form, with a Shakti, doesn't matter if it's male or female form, with Shakti, who identifies as Shakti, her physical and subtle body are never going to feel safe to open. Shakti needs to know that your yes is a whole yes and your no is a whole no. Like, you're behind all of that. And I was saying last week, we have one mouth and 2 ears. So can you really listen? You're not listening to speak. You're listening to listen. You're not there to fix anything. You're not there to win an argument. You're simply there to witness. That's Shiva. Shiva is the eternal witness to all of it. You're there to witness and hold space. It's the container of the universe while Shakti dances. I mean, can you hold that space? Can you listen to her? Can you see her, even in the places she hasn't looked yet or is afraid to look? And we talked about the chakras, the root chakra and the heart chakra. Are you living from your heart, from love, from compassion, from empathy, from vulnerability, or barely functioning from that survival root chakra base energy that governs survival, food, sex, and shelter? It also governs your creativity. We have a choice which one we choose. Which wolf are we going to feed? One wolf makes us very strong and powerful and embodied and devoted. Another wolf, not so much. The heart, that's the connection. That's the truth. That's the devotion. A heart that doesn't know what it wants is not safe. It's not safe to open. So the purpose of the masculine is not to survive or dominate from the root chakra. It's to integrate all the centers, all the aspects of consciousness into a unified field of presence. Imagine if you lost everything. You lost your business collapsed. The pandemic hit and you had to close down your business. Your crypto crashed. I think the crypto market just crashed yesterday. You invested a lot of money in gold and silver and that just crashed. The economy crashes. The so-called ground beneath you gives way. Can you still stand in your center unmoved, knowing in the core of your being that your worth and your ability to show up is not based on what you own? It's not based on even what you do. It's based on who you are as consciousness beyond the veil of the ever-changing world. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself. And in order to do that, you need to do spiritual practice. You need to meditate. You need to breathe. You need to contemplate everything that's not the self. If you want your beloved to trust you, if you want the universe to trust you, you want God to trust you, or anyone to trust you, you have to trust yourself. If you don't feel worthy of love, that's when we try and compensate with money, power, name, fame, control, domination, like that. I think that's really what a lot of the law enforcement and government is about. I'm not saying that all law enforcement and politicians are this way, but a lot of them. That's what the wounded masculine is about. The wounded masculine goes into a field of control for the wrong reason, whether you're a soldier or a politician, law enforcement, like this. Any relationship that's built on financial security without emotional maturity will collapse under stress. And that's even, I don't want to get into monogamy, polyamory, all this, but like we actually didn't, marriage is an institution that was created for financial control by the patriarch. So the oligarchy, the royalty they would know who their children were, because in tribes, like they weren't actually so sure who their children were. They knew who their children were so they could pass their name down and their riches and their fame and their, the ego structures of their genealogy down. But that's not any kind of security. That's not emotional maturity or financial security. And that's why divorce rates are an all-time high. That's one of the reasons, because there's not emotional maturity. There's not the willingness to sit in the fire when the fire gets really hot. A true partnership that's based on divine union, that's based on spiritual growth with the goal of understanding the self as the goal, requires so much more than material security. It requires us being able to go to the depth of our being established there no matter what happens. It becomes unshakable. And I'm not, too fond of those traditional marriage vows or anything, but that's what they were about, at least from the Western model. In sickness and health, good times, bad times, till death do you part. Now, I'm not saying that if your relationship is really toxic and abusive and violent to stay in it, not at all. Get out as quick as possible. But if it's not that, and you are on the spiritual path and your partner is on the spiritual path, work on it. Again, I'm not saying that if you're in a very toxic, unhealthy relationship, stay in it, get out as quick as possible. But if your relationship is based on a higher purpose, walk each other home, lift each other up. When you fall down, you have someone there to pick you up. And if that's true, there's no scenario in the temporary material world that can break that bond. But for this to be a living truth, It's asking that the divine masculine rise up, have integrity, trust yourself first, and then learn to trust others, trust life. Mother Teresa once said, God will never give us more than we can handle. Sometimes I just wish he didn't trust me so much. We trust that God trusts us, that we will get what we can handle if we're showing up authentically with our embodied presence. And from that place, we build sustainability. We build sustainability in the material world and in our emotional and mental well-being and in our spiritual wealth. That's the real bank account, is our spiritual wealth. In yoga, there's the 4 goals of life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma is our purpose and doing what's right as per the time, as per our unique circumstance. Artha, one of the 4 major goals of life, is wealth. It's spiritual wealth and material wealth. And the spiritual wealth is knowing how to use material wealth and in the right time, in the right way, for service in alignment with dharma. And that creates an abundance of everything in our life. The next goal is kama, pleasure, enjoyment. How do we enjoy this world? God's world was made for bliss. It's made for love and enjoyment. The 5 sense organs can perceive God as beauty. The animals don't do that. They are beauty, but we have the blessing of perceiving the world as beauty if we show up in dharma and the right use of artha. And from that, those 3 support us in moksha. Moksha doesn't mean we leave our physical body and rainbow light body out of here. It means that too, but it means being free, liberated from the false concepts of self, from the identification of who we are as our personality and the ego structures. We identify as Shiva, as pure consciousness, with Shakti dancing within that. I'm very excited to share with you Real Mushrooms, the sponsor of the Awakened Living podcast. I use their mushrooms every single day because they've genuinely changed my life. I trust them because they have 50 years of expertise and use 100% organic mushrooms, 0 grains, 0 fillers, which are found in most common mushroom products on the market. They use just real, organic, clinically tested mushrooms. Every morning, I use lion's mane to sharpen my thinking. I use cordyceps to give me the clean energy I need for the day. I use chaga to strengthen my immune system. And when stress hits, and it does, I use reishi to bring me back to center. With their products, you actually feel the difference. Through the end of March, Real Mushrooms gives Awakened Living with Nibodhi podcast listeners 25% off their entire first order. Use the code AWAKEN25 at checkout to get 25% off your first purchase. You can find their link in the show notes or visit nibodhi.com/mushrooms to get yours today. We're human beings. We're not human doings. When we're caught in the I doing something, we're not being present. When we do from a place where we feel we need to do in order to be valuable, our worth is kind of empty. Our worthiness becomes emptiness. And there's an emptiness that's beautiful. It's the emptiness that allows us to be filled up again, but that's not what I'm talking about. We're empty when we're seeking validation and we need the external world to approve of us. When we create from a place of authenticity, there's a blessing that comes, and that's aligned with our being and our purpose, and it aligns with these Purusharthas, the 4 goals of life, and the universe backs us up and supports us and has our back. So here's another concept that is probably shocking to some, and it might even challenge everything that the mainstream teaches, at least mainstream society, the toxic masculine patriarch mainstream society. Just like an embodied man wants her woman to be an embodied, empowered women, at least the ones I'm close to, the ones that I have relationships with who have really done the work, they don't want that Mr. Nice Guy that society projects. They don't even respect Mr. Nice Guy. And what I mean by Mr. Nice Guy is the one who's like always agreeing, who's always going along with that, but can't speak his truth. He plays it safe to avoid conflict and stays polite and suppresses his wildness. Shakti yearns for in every fiber of her being the depth of her Shiva being authenticity, showing up as self. That's not performance-based. That's not people-pleasing based. That's not even being perfect. There is no perfect. Everyone is perfectly imperfect, and in that is a perfection. Shakti wants embodied truth. Shakti is showing up completely authentically. She needs Shiva to bear witness to that. And that includes the darkness, the shadow, the mature dark masculine. That's not lust. That's not a predator. That's not a warlord. That's a powerful protector. It is the primal force that knows how to protect the family. If someone comes to the house to hurt your family, you're there to protect them. You can stand up and defend your family. You can defend the tribe when needed. And at the same time, go back up into the bedroom and ravage the divine feminine open with the deepest reverence. That's the part of you that society has probably shamed, judged, and forced underground, is the ability to do both. The Maasai warrior, what's considered a great Maasai warrior, is he's willing to cut your heart out if necessary and sit there and hold you and cry with you when it's appropriate. Again, just like with the divine feminine or the toxic feminine, the toxic masculine, there's great danger in unintegrated power and great danger in repressed, suppressed, and depressed power. That's what a lot of the government leaders are doing. They're repressed, suppressed, depressed. And a lot of the current leaders have had immense amount of trauma and have not looked at it. I mean, the current leader of the United States, in his inaugural speech, said the world is a terrible place. That's how he sees the world, because his life as a child was terrible. We understand that. We have compassion and empathy for that little child, but he's an adult now. We don't tolerate that. It's not acceptable. It's our dharma to stand up to adharmic acts. And again, it's important to understand that suppressed energy, repressed, depressed energy, especially in the form of sexuality, becomes very distorted. And that's seen so abundantly in modern advertising and the pornography and the manipulation of the human psyche. The suppressed power is manipulative, just like the government. Suppressed anger actually can become depression, deep depression. That's why the drug companies are thriving off of antidepressant medication. Depression and suicide is in higher rates now than it's ever been in human history. And a huge amount of this comes from forced societal guilt and the shame around our erotic innocence and suppression of our erotic and emotional intelligence. Because when the erotic creative power, the erotic creative fire, that light, that spark that, again, created the whole universe, becomes suppressed or tries to become contained, it's not dying. It's descending into the unconscious. And that fire becomes a living hell that lives within our thoughts and our emotions and our body. And that's where it does the most harm, in the shadows, in the guilt, in the shame, in the secrecy. Bring it all into the light. We're not trying to cancel anybody. We want everyone brought into the light. Bring all the demons into the light. Bring the darkness into the light. So the world doesn't need Mr. Nice Guy, and it doesn't need toxic masculinity. It needs authenticity, embodied, empowered, initiated, awakened Shiva, the divine masculine. Men who have met their shadow, danced with it, played with it, integrated it, have made peace with themselves. And likewise, men who can feel their rage without it becoming destructive, use that for creativity, to transform that into something beautiful. And also with desire, if you can feel the desire without it becoming all-consuming and having to get every desire you have outside of yourself, that desire transforms into a divine desire, the desire for love, the desire to share your love with the world and your spark of creation with the world. And then you can open Shakti. You allow Shakti to open. You don't open her. You hold presence for her to open, not through domination, through pure beauty of witnessing. And that's another part of the paradox, right? A Shakti only fully surrenders when she trusts. And she can only trust a Shiva who is whole within himself. He also is as comfortable being alone in a cave in the Himalayas as he is in a room full of people. Your ability to lead is directly correlated to your ability to love and to penetrate, and I use that word intentionally, to penetrate life with presence. All of that is directly relational and proportional to how deeply you've penetrated into your own darkness and how deeply you've met yourself. And we need to direct our awareness inward, because the root of the mistrust between masculine and feminine, again, I said it in last week's podcast, it's not personal. It's the collective unconscious that's from ancestral trauma. And we have to get rid of the narratives. There's a collective narrative. It's a collective wound, really, that keeps telling the world, men can't be trusted. Men can't be trusted. There's no good men. There's no good men. I hear this all the time, even in the yoga community, in the conscious community. There's no good men out there. There's no embodied men out there. Well, keep telling yourself that. Keep telling the world that. And that's what you get, because words are power. Words manifest thoughts. What we speak is a prayer. What we speak is a blessing or a curse. Shakti needs to hold men in the highest light for them to awaken. Men need to hold Shakti in her highest light for her to dance. Okay? These wounds are born from thousands of years of betrayal, abuse, abandonment, generation after generation after generation. It's up to us to stop it. If you're conscious, if you're listening to this, it's your time to stop it. It's your time to awaken. This isn't theoretical. It's 100% real. It's 100% personal and simultaneously impersonal. But for me, it is personal, because my father, he left his form last year, was a very intelligent man, and he was very connected to nature. And sometimes he was very kind and loving, and sometimes he wasn't. And when he wasn't, it was because he was deeply wounded. And that was ancestral too. That was generational. And my experience of him is that either he couldn't or wouldn't process his own pain. And so as a child, I witnessed and experienced a lot of unhealthy, disconnected forms of love and actually neglect and abandonment. My parents left me alone when I was 1 month old, not being held, not being fed. I'm not seeking sympathy. Like, I've dealt with that. I'm dealing with that. It's integrated. But it took me decades to identify that pattern, because what that created for me was a lot of threads of abandonment in relationships as an adult that I had to work with. And it required a lot of intense work. And even still, sometimes those subconscious patterns and those survival adaptations try to come to the surface. And the difference is, now that I have those tools, I'm aware of them coming up, and so I don't react and I don't act on them. And I breathe into them and I give them love. I give that abandoned, neglected child love and empathy and hold it until it feels calm and safe again. But it took me decades to identify those patterns. And it took me a lot of painful experiences to reclaim my inner Shiva, my inner masculine, and to trust myself again. And in the process of all that, I hurt people. And I've apologized to those who I could. So if you're happening to listen to this and you're one of the people I hurt, I sincerely apologize. I was always doing the best I could, and I did what I knew. We know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. But now I'm able to trust myself again, that I can show up for myself and I can show up for others. And I'm also totally open and willing to be called out when I'm not in alignment with that. And one of the things I realize is, if I don't trust that masculine Shiva presence, I don't trust myself and I don't trust life. And then if I don't trust life, how can I truly be love? How can I be in love? How can I be loved? So to show up is an ongoing, breath by breath, moment to moment, thought by thought, emotion by emotion process. It's not that we're not going to have intense emotions. I have intense emotions all the time. I sit with them and I watch them and I acknowledge them and I breathe with them and I ask what they're trying to teach me. Remember that the ancient wisdom teaches us that Shiva and Shakti are those two halves. And if they're out of balance, we're not whole. And so being the witness to the dance of Shakti within myself and identifying with the witness simultaneously, that's what creates more of wholeness. And that brings that prana, tejas, and ojas that's been distorted back into balance. But I'm always doing self-inquiry, and we have to do that. I ask myself these questions all the time. When did I first lose trust? In myself, in my family, in my community, in my grade school teachers, in the world, in the universe, in God, in the plan? right? And when the pain comes up, I really do inquire, is this my pain or is this a global pain? Am I feeling the masses? Am I feeling the pain of the earth? Am I feeling the pain of Minnesota and Iran and Ukraine and Gaza Strip and all the starving people in India and South America, everywhere? Am I feeling the global collective pain? And actually, if we're not feeling the global collective pain, I'm concerned, because we should be feeling that, because it's all of ours. And it's our job to cry the uncried tears of our ancestors, because they were taught it's not safe to cry. They were taught boys don't cry, right? The beautiful Cure song from the early 80s, boys don't cry, cover it all up with lies. When we're willing to allow ourselves to cry and be vulnerable, that's when the power comes. Not the dominant power, the real power, the power to transform. But still, then I still have to ask myself, what do I believe about my power and my place in the world? And who am I to exercise power in the world? And again, I bring it back to last week's quote that I gave on Marianne Williamson. Who are you not to be beautiful and powerful? It doesn't serve the world playing small. But don't play big if you don't feel that big God's grace, love, beauty inside of yourself. Healing the divide between the masculine and feminine begins with healing the divide within ourselves. So my invitation to you is not performative. It's not to prove anything to anyone. It's just to reclaim that inside yourself. Shiva and Shakti, return to your innocence, return to your emotional intelligence, return to that erotic innocence that created you, that creates life. That's all the inspiration in the world. That's the return to the self. That's what it means to reclaim the divine, the sacred, that inspired fire, that tejas. Inside of our body, we have what's called Pilu Chitta Agni. It's a cellular intelligence. It's the light of consciousness in every cell that allows a cell to do exactly what the cell is supposed to do. That's ahamkar, that's ego. That's the original ego. The original ego of a human being is aham brahmasmi. I am that supreme consciousness. Om Tat Sat, I am that. That is the light of consciousness. That's who we truly are. Each cell has an ahamkar. It's got a function it's supposed to carry out. And if it carries out the function, the body works in harmony. The ahamkar of a mango seed is to make a mango tree. If a mango seed decides, I don't want to be a mango tree anymore, it actually doesn't have a choice. But what happens to the mango seed? It just dies and shrivels up. And it's the divine Shakti that makes the universe dance inside of us in every cell, that makes the ahamkar exist. And for the ahamkar to manifest in the material world, for that to take place, we need to go back to Shiva, to the pure consciousness. We need to go back to stillness, because if there's nothing there to witness it, nothing's actually happening. There's that saying, if a tree falls in the forest, doesn't make a sound. If there's no one here to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. It's the pure consciousness of awareness, the eternal witness, that is witnessing life. That's always been there in all ways throughout your life. Regardless of your body changing, the roles you play in society, you were always there. So reclaim that I am. Reclaim the truth that I am. I am consciousness. And offer that. If you can truly reclaim I amness and offer that, that is your truest gift to yourself, to your partner, to your family, to the community, to life, to the creation. Then let Shakti feel you so deeply, so rooted in yourself, that Shakti surrenders in a way that she dances the most exquisite dance that you've ever seen. She's already doing that. You're just not there to witness it. It happens when you remember who you are. In that real surrender, you disappear. I disappears. Shiva disappears. Shakti disappears. She becomes you. You become her. There was never a separation. Again, we have I amnesia. We forgot who I am is. It's not scary to disappear. It's scary to not disappear, because that's what creates separateness. That's what keeps us alone. From that place of union, from that place of remembrance that you are Shiva and that you are Shakti, the wounds heal and the heart opens. And we penetrate life with our presence fully, the most authentic way possible, the most erotic way possible, the most spiritually liberated way possible, the most awakened, heart-centered life we can live comes from that union, not from separation. The pain of separation is becoming more and more unbearable. So may you open, and may the world around you open, and may your heart open, and may Shiva inside of you open, and may Shakti inside of you open, and may our divine masculine and divine feminine forever dance as one to the one song, the universe. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Parashakti Namaha, Om Shiva Shakti Ekarupanye Namaha. May our hearts grow to be as expansive as the universe from which they came, and may we remember that in every breath. Namaste.